Warning: the following video contains explicit language which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
It's Jeff. Glad you're here. Glad you're watching. Hope you're having a good October. So it's been cold and damp here mostly. We've had a few good days, but it's been cold and damp, and I caught a cold over that period, and I'm getting over it now. So that's the good news. And Halloween is just around the corner. So I hope everybody is taking some fun, having some fun with decorating for Halloween and done so. And I know I've seen a lot of homes around with decorations. I see that some people have this huge inflatable pumpkin. It's bigger than a house. I don't know where they bought it, but there's a couple of places around here where people have it. And it's really something to see. I mean, geez, giant pumpkin. Geez, never seen one like that. But yeah, it's pretty wild. The old place I was at, they knocked it down as I expected that they would. They sent the trucks over there, and they just took down the whole rest of the building that from the fire that was there. They just knocked it all down. So there's just half a building left, the half that didn't get damaged, and there's still people living in that part. But the other half is gone now. They took it all down. So it was a little bit bittersweet to see that place, brought down. It wasn't just a couple months ago I was there living, had my cat and everything, and then see how quickly things can change on a dime, in life. That's why Donald Trump is doing this right now to lots of people around the country here. 1 minute they were doing well, stable, and then the next minute, because of something he did, some policy or Doge, people's lives have been upended like that in this country. And I know a lot of you people are going to say, "Oh, we shut the hell up." No, I'm not going to shut up about it, because it's the truth and it has to be said. The time has to be made for that to be said. And, my going through what I went through was sort of, an example of what lots of people are going through right now, especially with the 3.5 million people in Texas who are not going to have food stamps next month because of the government Epstein shutdown. And that's ridiculous. Okay, that shouldn't even happen in this country. I mean, if we give a shit at all. I mean, if we've spent years making safety net programs for people in this country to keep from falling down into destitution and stuff like that, if we gave a shit enough to do that, then we shouldn't allow this to happen. Okay, I understand why this is going on. Okay, I understand the details probably better than most. Okay, I mean, I'm sure Republicans are trying to shift the narrative by saying, "Oh, it's all the Democrats' fault," and yada yada, but it was they who started it by trying to cut health care away from people, and the Democrats not wanting that to happen. And then, of course, denying this newly elected woman here to be sworn in to Congress, ostensibly because she would be the 218th vote to have the Epstein files released. I mean, the Republicans had more than enough reasons why they wanted to have this government shutdown, okay, more than the Democrats. And so I think that there's a lot there that will contradict anything they say about Democrats and, the shutdown. So I want to read this here, Daily Dose, and it's titled, Trump admits to killing people and ignoring due process. Well, that's not going to come to much shock to most of us who've been paying attention lately. And this is what he said in quotes. We're going to kill them. They're going to be like dead, unquote. There's a Watergate level scandal every single day with this guy. This time, admitting to killing and continuing to kill foreign citizens without any due process, investigation, or congressional approval. At Trump's direction, Pete Hegseth has ordered 9 known attacks on boats in the Caribbean Sea and the Pacific Ocean, killing 43 people. Each attack was due to the boats carrying alleged drug traffickers, but considering they were bombed with no questions asked and no due process, it looks more like Trump is just murdering foreign civilians without a declaration of war from Congress and without informing Congress of any intelligence or reasoning behind those attacks. Trump even admitted to ignoring Congress to make these military decisions, saying, I don't think, and this is in quotes, I don't think we're necessarily going to ask for a declaration of war. I think we're just going to kill people that are bringing drugs into our country. We're going to kill them. They're going to be like dead, unquote. In response to the latest attacks, Colombian President Gustavo Petro tweeted, quote, Igualmente es un asentimiento si en el Caribe o en el Pacífico la estrategia del gobierno de EU rompe las normas del derecho internacional, unquote. And what that means is it is still a murder, whether in the Caribbean or the Pacific. The U.S. government strategy breaks the norms of international law. Trump has ripped our Constitution to shreds and broken laws almost on a weekly basis. But ignoring international laws to kill civilians without sharing any real reason is reaching a new low. To stay on top of this and everything else, please consider becoming a supporter opposing Trump. So, like I said, no surprise. No surprise at all about that. Of course, this has been going on here for months now. But the fact that, the point that really kind of strikes me funny is the UN. The United States has laws which were created with assistance from the UN about international affairs, okay? This clearly violates UN laws here. It's got to be, because the United States takes its cues a lot from the UN and vice versa. So, why has the UN been so quiet about this? I mean, I would think that, if this was like, let's say this was another country. Let's just pick one, okay? Pick a country in the world, and they have a little military going around blowing boats out of the water and stuff like that. I would expect that the UN would have a problem with that, and they'd make it known. They'd probably be pushing the United States to do something about it. Okay? But here, the United States is the problem. We're blowing boats out of the water. Okay? We don't even know whether these people are actually criminals or not. They're just, they see a boat, blow it out of the water, okay? That's what we're being told. And if that's the way it is, the UN really shouldn't be quiet about this. They should be speaking out about this. That's how I look at it, because if we can't expect our own government to correct this problem, then we have to rely on other governments and other agencies to step in here to correct us from what's going on. And I think that the fact that they're so quiet about this, it's troublesome, and it kind of shows really, how toothless the UN is without us, and how our country turning into a dictatorship is a danger not only to the UN but to the entire world, because we have such a powerful military and arms no one can consider themselves safe from the United States, because there, you know, really no military could really match us. You know what I'm saying? So it's like a nightmare of all nightmares to have your greatest ally suddenly become your worst enemy. And that's what we've become, I guess, you know, as far as the international peace is concerned. We've really lost control of ourselves, and now we're a danger to everyone around us, especially to every free country out there, you know. And then, oh yeah, Steve Bannon comes out and says, like, we didn't know this already, that, oh, Trump's got a plan to be president in 2028. Okay, yeah, Steve, we already know that. Trump said as much like a year ago, okay? Yeah, we already know that. And the only way he can become president again is if everybody else does nothing. Seriously. If nobody does anything, okay, to stop that, then sure, he could be president again for as long as people will just sit still, not do anything. Okay? But that's the only way that's going to work. There ain't no fucking plan that would ever work where he could be president again unless it hinges on everybody else doing nothing to stop him. Now, here's this thing. This is, I read this earlier today. It was pretty interesting, that entitled here, U.S. officials descend on Israel for babysitting a mission to ensure Netanyahu doesn't violate Gaza truce. Okay? So the United States sent some people to Israel to sort of make sure that Netanyahu plays by Trump's rules, okay? All right. Now, this is funny because this is Netanyahu who wanted Trump to help him out here in this fucking mess with Gaza. Now he's getting more than he ever hoped for, because now Trump is actually, you know, starting to step on Netanyahu's toes here, and I don't think he's going to like that. Frustrated U.S. officials have hastily launched a diplomatic mission they've informally dubbed as quote-unquote babysitting, as concerns over the Israel Prime Minister's willingness to stop committing war crimes and actually abide by the fragile truce he previously agreed to are understandably growing. The constant supervision to prevent the Israel leader from falling into old habits is, of course, humiliating to Netanyahu, but clearly warranted. When asked why the U.S. required such a strong presence on the ground in Israel if the truce was holding, J.D. Vance made the following startling admission, quote, "It's not supervision to prevent the Israel leader from falling into old habits is, of course, humiliating to Netanyahu, but clearly warranted." And he said it's not about monitoring it, it's the sense of monitoring a toddler. It's important for the Trump administration to make sure our people continue to keep doing what we need them to do. Quote, unquote. So they're definitely calling Netanyahu a petulant man-child. And, you know, I'm sure Netanyahu has gotten word of that, and he's probably all pissed off. But hey, Netanyahu, you got what you wanted, right? You wanted Trump's help, now you got it. Now you wish you didn't have it. Now he's putting his foot on the ground, and he's curbing your, what can we say, his need for bloodlust. He's trying to stop you from breaking the ceasefire, because he's so intent on getting that peace prize, okay, the Nobel Peace Prize, as Caroline Leavitt puts it. He wants to be seen as such a positive thing in the world, okay, that he stopped the war, that he's actually going to impose his will on Israel to make sure that it happens, okay? I don't know how that's going to play out with the people in that country. That, oh, the United States now is controlling your country. We are, you know, our president is actually telling your leader, your prime minister, how to behave. So the United States ostensibly now is calling the shots in Israel because Trump wants to look like a peacemaker, okay? And he doesn't trust Netanyahu to play by his rules. And Netanyahu doesn't want to play by rules. He wants to do it like what he wants to. Get rid of all the Palestinians out of his country. That's what he wants. Again, this is another example of Trump not playing by international rules. Again, another situation where the UN should be stepping in here and telling the United States, you're crossing the lines here. It's not your country. He does what he wants. You know, you negotiate for these ceasefires. You don't force it. So, I mean, like I said, this is a situation again where I'm like, let's waiting for the UN to say something here about this, and you know, there's not a whole lot said. You know, and like I said, you know, other countries should be weary of a United States being run by this madman, because they won't be safe. Right now, Venezuela, okay, we were fine with Venezuela until Trump got in there, and now we're at war with Venezuela pretty much. I mean, I say that, you know, not to kind of paint a dishonest picture, but we haven't really been told what's going on in Venezuela, have we? Ever since we started blowing their boats out of the water and stuff, I would assume the Venezuelans are retaliating down there, but we're not hearing much about that on the news. And I'm just assuming that it's an undeclared war that's going on in Venezuela. You know, what else are we to think? You know, when this is what happens when your press doesn't do its fucking job to get the facts out. Okay? People are left speculating. And you can't tell people you're wrong or you're right, because if you've got no proof either way, it just falls on deaf ears. Okay? You know, it's like, that's why we all want to know about the Epstein files. Because, you know, we can sit here and make all kinds of conspiracy theories about what's in those files and everything. But if somebody says, oh, you're wrong, you're bullshitting me, all you got to do is say, prove it. And they can't, because all that information is sealed. And nobody's seen any of it, you know. So that's kind of like what's happening, basically, I think, with this whole bullshit here about, you know, going after these supposed drug dealers or whatever the hell, you know, with gunboats. And here's another article here that sort of, you know, paints another color to this, what I was just telling you. This article, Trump brags Congress won't stop him when the military strikes on South American narco terrorists inevitably move to land. We hate to say it, but Donald is definitely right on this one. Feckless Republicans in Congress have shown no inclination to stand up to the wannabe dictator for literally any of his many autocratic transgressions, up to and including the hasty demolition of the entire West Wing of the White House. So why on earth would they stop their authoritarian cult leader if and when he decides to invade Venezuela in the name of eradicating narco-terrorists? Trump's fascist tendencies are well documented and to be expected at the point which makes the wholesale abdication of duty by a servile GOP that ostensibly once believed in congressional checks and balances all the more contemptible. And just what I was just telling you. Trump team adds Bill Clinton's sex scandal, random photos of Barack Obama in Kenya in 2006, and Hunter Biden drug addiction struggles to official White House, quote, major events timeline, unquote. Trump goons added some curious entries to the official White House website timeline yesterday, but for some reason left several historical doozies out, including the 2017 firing of then FBI Director James Comey for refusing to serve as his personal attack dog, Donald's famous 2019 Ukrainian quid pro quo scandal that got him impeached the first time, the MAGA cult leader's epic fumbling of the COVID pandemic in 2020, including his infamous press conference where he suggested injecting bleach as a potential cure, the tear gassing of American citizens, injecting bleach. Excuse me. The tear gassing of American citizens outside the White House so he could stage a silly photo op outside a nearby church later that same summer. The many Oval Office phone calls he made in his failed attempt to overturn the results of the 2020 election, the violent insurrection he incited, then watched on TV for hours on end from the White House residence on January 6, 2021, which led to his second impeachment and his refusal to participate in a peaceful transfer of power when Joe Biden became president. Wonder why those entries didn't make the cut. Well, surely there's a lot there, right? I mean, the list of things to add. But of course, those won't be added in there while Trump's still sitting in the White House. Okay, if ever. But it's more likely that later on people might put that in there saying if everything ends up working out better in the end than what we think, that could be the case. But Trump, he is so, how can I say it, obsessed, with fighting with Democrats, that every action that he does, everything that he takes, everything that he brags about is always kind of fueled by his obsession with Barack Obama or the Democrats, and certain Democrats, especially those who speak out against him and do so, very vocally. He goes after them. And I think that egging him on the way that it does, I mean, it's obviously a manipulation tactic that he falls for every time. But I think because he has a very thin skin, that makes him very weak, especially when it comes to the international stage, because other international leaders can pretty much manipulate him in much the same way. But the last thing he wants, clearly, is for anybody else to point out the things that he's done and the reasons why he's being attacked, because they're justified. I mean, they're not like small things, like the sex scandal that Bill Clinton. Okay, whoopee. How many men in America have done exactly the same fucking thing? It's not such an unusual national threatening affair. Okay, yet the Republicans back then wanted to make it into some big fucking Watergate type scandal, the whole country's at risk. Okay, and they wasted I don't know how much of our fucking tax dollars trying to get him. Okay, but you want to talk about waste and fraud? Okay, Republicans are good at that, waste and fraud. They wasted all kinds of good money going after a guy who is obviously flawed, but wasn't doing anything to damage the United States. Okay, what he was doing with Monica Lewinsky is the same as many leaders around the world do on the side against their wives. Okay, I don't understand why. It's just political gamesmanship is all it was. Okay, it was just we smell blood in the water. Well, they smelt something in the water, but it wasn't blood, I think. Okay. But the thing of it is that with Trump, the things that he's done go to the very heart of the country, to the Constitution itself, to the way we manage our government, the crimes he's committed, breaking actual laws. Okay, there was no law being broken that Clinton did with Monica Lewinsky, no law that concerns the United States. Okay, but how many fucking laws did Trump break already? And yet, the son of a bitch is still in the White House. The Senate and Congress appeared to be neutered in some fashion because they don't seem to have the balls to actually do anything about that we have a criminal in the White House. The UN, as I said earlier, doesn't seem to have any balls to come down on the United States for what we're doing. Okay? And that's the only reason why Trump is continuing to keep pushing the envelope. I mean, what's it going to take? How many more transgressions are we going to have to sit through before we decide we've had enough? He's done enough. We can't let him go any further. He's crossed the line. What's it going to take? Who has to die? What country has to be invaded? You know? I mean, this is kind of the same question we ask ourselves about the gun crime problem. Who is going to have to die in order for people to actually wake up and say, yes, we got to get rid of guns in this country because it's not good? When is the final straw on that, and when is the final straw with Trump? Because I don't hear much drum beating out there for people to come together and revolt. Sure, they might be out on the streets. I mean, yes, they had record-breaking numbers during the No Kings rally there a week ago. The biggest rally in history, American history, okay? And, you know, but what good did it do? Did Trump care? No, he probably didn't even watch it. Yeah, he threatened before the day before, saying, oh, I'm going to launch rockets and all this shit. Okay. That was, you know, because he's having this tit for tat here with Governor Newsom out in California. But the fact is that protests be damned. Trump will do what he wants because he knows that the powers that be are going to let him do it. Now, I'm not going to, I'd like to think there are some people in the establishment who really would like to try to do something but are unable because they don't have the numbers behind them to actually do anything. But that only means that the majority of what's in the establishment is comfortably seated in their positions of power, and they don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to be the one without a chair when the music stops. You know what I'm saying? So these people will do what they have to ride this out for as long as they have to. That's fine for them. But for the rest of us, we really are running out of options here, aren't we? And so as we sit here and as I read these things to you, and I'm sure you've been following the news, whatever news program you watch, and you see the unrest that's brewing everywhere, okay? As we see what's happening to our lives and to our country, at some point we're not going to be able to just keep sitting here and riding this out, because we won't be able to. We're going to lose everything we have, and we're going to be, where? Out on the street, homeless, dead maybe, because our medical bills are going to be uncovered. You know what I'm saying? Like I said at the beginning, our lives can change like that, where yesterday you were living comfortably, watching TV, you had your bills paid or something, okay? And now, 24 hours later, you're completely out of that comfortable spot you were in. Now it's no longer there. And that's how fast these things can happen when Trump, dishes out some goddamn policy or some action that upsets millions of American lives. And you can't assume that you're not going to be affected. Okay? About 3 weeks ago, people were saying, oh, this shutdown wasn't going to last. Well, now it's become the second longest shutdown in American history. And I'm telling you right now, it's going to quickly become the number one, the very longest one, because, like I said, there's a lot riding on the shutdown that Republicans don't want it to see happen. Okay, for a lot of reasons. And like I said, you got Trump's ass is on the line right now for that. Mike Johnson's ass is on the line, okay? If they start the government back up again, them two right there are going to be, they're going to have problems. They're going to have problems, and those are problems they don't want to have to contend with. All right? So I wouldn't be surprised if this shutdown goes on into next year. Okay? I would not be surprised. I think anything is possible at this point. Because I just, if they don't care about millions of people, not just in Texas, but around the country, not having food stamps, if they're willing to sacrifice those people and their food stamps and all that, snap, then there's no fucking question about how willing they are to keep the government shut down. And like people have been saying, when he started with Doge, getting rid of government agencies or something like that, this is a perfect opportunity now for Trump to get rid of more people in the government. Because with the government shutdown and a lot of people laid off, those people, well, we don't need them. Get rid of them. They won't have a job to come back to. Like I said, overnight, once you had a job, you had comfortable lifestyle and everything, and now all of a sudden it's gone, and you don't even know why. Okay? Now you don't have a job, and now you got bills, and you're in danger of losing your house, your apartment, your car, you name it. Whatever is not paid for, you're going to lose it. That's what a lot of people are going to be looking at in the days to come. All right? And that's what I'm saying. How long are we just going to sit here and let this play out before there's a revolt? I mean, Trump's pushing for it, okay? And he's going to do everything he can to have this revolt happen. So why pretend we can stop that? Because the longer we wait, the worse we get hurt, the weaker we get. You see what I'm saying? Why wait? Why let more people fall on their ass because Trump took something away from them? Why do we do that? Okay? If you give a shit at all about your neighbor or your family member, okay, then you won't let this go on. You'll start getting people together. You'll start getting people together to get them to revolt. Okay? Because that's the only choice we have, I think, as far as this country's concerned. And I don't think we'd be alone in that regard, because I think with the rest of the world and the way Trump's been treating them, I think it would be easy to see that we wouldn't be standing alone to get rid of that regime. He's cutting off all trade negotiations with Canada. You heard that? That happened. I saw that on the news today. Because Canada was running a commercial, I guess, on Canadian TV with Ronald Reagan having said something about tariffs back in the 80s. And I know I've seen that video, but I can't remember verbatim what he said. But essentially what Reagan was saying, that tariffs are not good for a country. It creates a lot of economic havoc and stuff, and it should be like a last resort kind of thing, if it's ever needed. And Trump didn't like that. He saw that was being aired in Canada, and he got mad about that, and now he's cutting off all talks with Canada. Well, Canada's not really going to care, okay, because they've opened up more trade with other countries around the United States, and they'll be fine. But the fact that Trump is so easily like thin skin, like I said, I would think that I know people are saying, oh, don't play his game. He's forcing us into that corner. He's forcing us into that corner because he doesn't like to be criticized. He doesn't like people telling him he can't be a king. He doesn't like any of that. And what he's forgetting is that the American people have a right to revolt against tyranny in this country. And our military has an obligation to defend the Constitution against enemies, foreign and domestic. That includes our own government. All right? So when your president is the tyranny, our military is supposed to respond to remove him. Okay? And so far, Trump has pretty much all the list of things that make a dictator. He's pretty much checked off all that shit right there. That Project 2025 manifesto is the fucking birth of a dictatorship in this country. He's following that damn thing. He's following that list in there. He's making check marks as he's going down on that thing. If the military hasn't caught on to this yet, I don't know when they will. But, with ICE out there doing the shit they're doing, okay, the games they're playing, beating people up that aren't even, illegal immigrants. I mean, they're rounding up, over almost 200 Americans already that are citizens, okay? beating them up. They've killed some people already. Okay, that's unacceptable. That right there that's a tyrant that ordered that shit to happen. Again, the Project 2025 thing that and the military should be paying attention to this and saying, look, we can't have this. It's a man with a bunch of cohorts, sycophants running this country now, and it's against the will of the country. It's against the majority thinking of this country. It's just a small group. That's all that MAGA is. It's not even 30%. Okay, it's a small group of Americans that have managed to wiggle influence in our government, okay, and now they're running everything. Well, that's not the way it's supposed to work, is it? Okay? So, tyranny, my friends, tyranny. And like I said, people's lives have already been upended in this country. Injustice has occurred on every scale. There's no oversight because, Trump has neutered that, and he's attacking government institutions to make sure that they can't check and balance him at every opportunity. Okay, so like I said, this is how it is. And like I said, when is there going to be a fucking revolt? I'm just waiting. It's like, come on, guys. One man can't do it alone. It takes a group. It takes a mass of people, like what we saw on that rally. Okay, No Kings rally. That's what you got to have. All those people come straight to Washington, D.C. If you want to see a pig sweat, that's how you do it. I'll talk to you later. Take care.